Tonight, millions of people will suddenly wake up at 2 in the morning, stare at the ceiling, and just feel this overwhelming sense of panic.
Oh yeah, the classic 2 a.m. dread.
Right. And if you are one of them, if you lie there agonizing that you're somehow ruining your health because you aren't getting, a continuous, unbroken 8 hours of sleep, I really want you to stop.
Honestly, it's so counterproductive.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. The holy grail of the 8-hour sleep block that you're constantly chasing, it's not actually a biological necessity.
No.
It is essentially an invention of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, it's a relatively modern behavioral straitjacket, to be honest.
Yeah.
We've reshaped our entire understanding of rest to fit neatly into a factory shift.
Right, the 9 to 5 grind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we've completely ignored our deep ancestral blueprints. I mean, human biology is significantly more fluid than a rigid 8-hour block.
So if you look at the history, like before factories demanded that workers rise with a whistle, human beings spent centuries practicing what historians call biphasic sleep.
Yes. 2 distinct phases of sleep.
Right. This was the true ancient human rhythm. You would go to bed for your first sleep a few hours after sunset. Then you just naturally wake up in the middle of the night for an hour or two.
And people didn't panic about insomnia back then.
Exactly. During this waking period, they would, read, chat with their family, tend the fire, or even go visit neighbors. And then they would go back for a second sleep until dawn.
When you dig into the historical records, diaries from the 1600s, classic literature, early medical texts, references to first sleep and second sleep are literally everywhere.
It was just normal.
It was a completely standard rhythm of life. The time in between, which they sometimes called the watch, was considered this very peaceful, meditative period.
Wow.
And when researchers take modern humans, strip away artificial lighting, and just let them live strictly by natural sunlight and darkness, human sleep naturally fractures right back into this biphasic 2-phase pattern.
That is wild. So the anxiety you feel today about waking up in the night is entirely manufactured by modern expectations.
Completely manufactured.
Well, that tension between our ancient biology and modern expectations is the core of our deep dive today. We are going to explore the hidden clocks inside your body.
And there are a lot of them.
Right. We'll look at how those clocks dictate your physical and mental energy, why shoving everyone into a 9 to 5 schedule might actually be destroying your team's productivity, and why some of the most famous viral sleep science of the last decade has recently come under intense fire.
Yeah, that is a huge paradigm shift we need to talk about.
Definitely. But to understand why that 8-hour myth is so flawed, we first have to start with the fact that your body doesn't just have one master clock ticking away in the brain.
No, the sheer scale of our internal timekeeping is genuinely staggering.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, the study of biological rhythms, chronobiology, focused almost entirely on something called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN.
Okay, the SCN, what exactly is that?
It's this tiny cluster of about 20,000 neurons tucked deep inside the hypothalamus in your brain.
Mm.
You can basically think of the SCN as your body's master pacemaker. It runs on a roughly 24-hour cycle, which is your circadian rhythm, and it relies heavily on light to stay accurate and, synchronize the rest of your system.
But wait, how does it actually know it's laid out? Like, if I am asleep with my eyes closed, how is my brain registering the sunrise to synchronize that master pacemaker?
Through an incredibly specialized mechanism, actually. Your eyes contain a specific type of cell called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells.
That is a mouthful.
It is. But basically, unlike the rods and cones in your eyes that process visual shapes and colors, these specific cells don't see images.
Oh, really?
Yeah, their only job is to detect the presence of photons, specifically the bright blue wavelength light of morning.
Ah, okay.
When that light filters through your eyelids, these cells send a signal straight down the optic nerve to the SCN. It's the biological equivalent of winding a watch and saying, the sun is up, begin the daytime processes.
So, if the SCN is the conductor of an orchestra, are the rest of the organs just playing along? Like a CEO sending a company-wide email saying the workday has started and all the organs just open up shop?
Well, that was the assumption for decades. But the reality is much more decentralized. The SCN is the CEO sending out that memo, sure. But the organs aren't just empty factories waiting for orders.
Okay, what are they doing then?
Almost every single cell and major organ in your body. Your liver, your heart, your muscles, your pancreas, your gut has its own autonomous built-in peripheral clock.
Autonomous. So they run on their own.
Exactly. They operate via their own complex transcriptional translational feedback loops of core clock genes.
Whoa, hold on, hold on. You're going to have to translate transcriptional translational feedback loops into plain English for me. How does a single cell keep time?
Fair enough. Imagine a tiny hourglass inside your cells. Throughout the day, certain genes in your DNA manufacture specific proteins.
Okay, proteins.
As the day goes on, those proteins accumulate inside the cell. It's kind of like sand filling up the bottom of an hourglass. Once the protein pile gets high enough, it triggers a signal that tells the cell to stop making that protein.
Oh, so it caps itself.
Right. And then the proteins slowly break down over the night, the hourglass empties, and the cycle starts all over again the next morning. That entire filling and emptying process takes roughly 24 hours.
Wow.
So your liver cells and heart cells are physically keeping their own time.
Okay, that makes sense. So we have millions of tiny hourglasses in our organs, but if the brain's master clock is reset by the sunlight hitting our eyes, what resets the hourglasses in our stomach or our liver?
So this is where we get to a massive paradigm shift in metabolism. It's largely driven by the research of Dr. Sachin Panda at the Salk Institute. While light resets your brain clock, the first bite of food resets your organ clocks.
Wait, really? Food?
Yes, the first bite of food.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if the brain is the CEO sending the morning email, the digestive organs are basically the middle managers on the factory floor.
Exactly.
The CEO can say the workday has started, but those managers aren't actually turning on the heavy machinery until the raw materials, the food, arrive on the loading dock.
That is the perfect way to look at it. Dr. Panda's research shows that when you eat your first bite of food, let's say breakfast at 8 a.m., you are essentially setting an appointment with your stomach, your liver, your muscles, and your pancreas.
You're clocking them in.
They're clocking them in. You're telling their peripheral clocks that the digestive shift has officially started. And biologically, those metabolic organs are designed to run optimally for a window of about 10 hours.
Only 10 hours.
Right. Digestion requires massive amounts of cellular energy. So after that 10-hour window, those organs desperately need to power down to perform cellular repair.
Man, this fundamentally shifts how we should think about diet. I mean, we obsess over calorie counts and macronutrients all day, but we completely ignore the timing.
We completely ignore it.
So let's say I eat a bowl of ice cream at 11 p.m. My eyes have been in the dark, so my master brain clock has already released melatonin. The CEO thinks the company is closed.
CEO's gone to bed.
But suddenly, my pancreas and liver get a massive influx of sugar and fat. What happens?
Those local managers panic. Your liver and pancreas peripheral clocks suddenly reset. They interpret that late-night food as the start of a brand new day.
Oh, wow.
And this causes what chronobiologists call systemic misalignment. Your brain is aggressively trying to put you into the night phase, dropping your body temperature and slowing your heart rate, but your digestive system is violently forced into the daytime processing phase.
And the physiological fallout of that has to be severe. Like, if my pancreas is essentially asleep, it's not going to produce insulin efficiently to handle that ice cream.
Precisely the issue. The pancreas is groggy, insulin production is sluggish, and as a result, your blood sugar stays elevated for hours. Over time, this chronic misalignment, forcing your organs to work the night shift while your brain is asleep, is heavily linked to metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular dysfunction, severe insulin resistance, and even an increased risk of certain cancers.
That is terrifying.
Your organs are practically experiencing severe jet lag on a daily basis without you ever leaving your living room.
It's wild to think that your liver can biologically be in Tokyo while your brain is in New York, just because of a midnight snack.
Yeah, exactly.
But this localized timekeeping doesn't just vary between our organs, right? It varies significantly from person to person. I mean, we all know people who naturally wake up at 5 a.m. ready to run a marathon, and people who are completely useless until noon.
Right, right. This is known as chronotype diversity. Broadly speaking, the population breaks down into 3 categories based on when their natural physical and psychological energy peaks occur.
Okay, what's the breakdown?
About 40% of people are morning types, or larks. 30% are evening types, or owls. And the remaining 30% sit somewhere in the middle as intermediates.
And this isn't just a preference,
No.
right?
It is a measurable physiological difference. If you track their core body temperature, a lark's temperature begins to rise hours before an owl's does.
See, but aren't night owls just naturally wired that way? Like, if someone says, I'm a night owl. I just can't fall asleep before 2 a.m., and we accept that their biology is simply hardwired that way. They can't help it.
Well, there is a genetic baseline, yes. Some people naturally lean a little earlier or later, but the extreme shifts we see in modern society, like people physically unable to sleep until 3 a.m., are largely a product of our environment.
Really? Environment over genetics?
Yeah. To test this, researchers conducted the famous camper experiment. They took a group of self-proclaimed extreme night owls who swore they could never sleep before 2 a.m. and took them camping in the wild for a week.
Let me guess. Without the artificial light constantly hitting those specialized eye cells we talked about, their bodies just reverted to the factory
And
settings.
within just a few days, they had no access to smartphones, LED bulbs, or artificial blue light. Just the sun, the moon, and the campfire.
Wow.
The results were dramatic. Their entire circadian system normalized. Their melatonin onset, which had been artificially delayed by evening screen time, shifted hours earlier to align with the sunset.
So they weren't staying up until 2 a.m. anymore.
Not at all. Without the artificial light tricking their master clocks into thinking it was still daytime, every single one of these extreme night owls was effortlessly falling asleep before 10 p.m. and waking up at dawn.
Okay, so millions of people walking around identifying as genetic night owls actually just have terrible light exposure habits.
Yeah.
They are blasting their master clock with blue light at 11 p.m., preventing the CEO from sending the go-to-sleep email.
That's exactly what's happening.
Wow. Well, if our individual clocks are so completely at the mercy of the light and food we expose them to, it makes me wonder how any modern workplace functions at all.
It's a struggle.
We are taking that 40-30-30 split of larks, owls, and intermediates, shoving them all into the same office building and demanding they perform complex tasks at 9 a.m.
And when you scale this biology up to the organizational level, you encounter a concept called team energetic asynchrony.
Team energetic
In-
asynchrony.
Yes. In any given group, individuals are experiencing their daily peaks and troughs in cognitive capacity at completely different times of the day.
So picture a surgical team attempting a complex, high-stakes operation at 8 a.m. You've got an attending surgeon who is a morning lark operating at absolute peak cognitive capacity.
Right.
But the anesthesiologist is an extreme night owl, currently slogging through their deepest biological energy trough of the day.
That is a prime example of high team energetic asynchrony. And for highly interdependent tasks, like a surgical operation, a rowing crew, or a live broadcast where everyone needs to be performing perfectly in unison, energetic asynchrony is a massive liability.
Because they aren't synced up.
Right. It leads to impaired coordination, communication breakdowns, and what researchers call process loss. Teammates are quite literally out of biological sync, which creates friction and inevitable errors.
But there has to be a flip side to this. I mean, if I'm running a nuclear submarine or a hospital ward, having everyone hit their energy trough at the exact same time sounds like a complete disaster.
And that's exactly where energetic asynchrony becomes an organizational superpower.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For tasks that require sustained, continuous attention over long periods like nursing shifts, radar operation, or IT security surveillance, a highly diverse chronotype team is incredibly valuable.
Because they cover each other's blind spots.
Exactly. It functions like a relay race. The morning lark handles the heavy cognitive lifting in the early hours. Then, just as their energy naturally starts to crash in the late afternoon, the night owl is hitting their biological peak, taking the baton with fresh, focused energy.
It's an energy relay. But that requires an organization to actually recognize those biological differences and schedule around them, rather than forcing the night owl to present a vital strategy pitch at 8 a.m.
Which rarely happens in the real world.
Right. Well, this leads me to a big question. Given how complex and individualized our clocks are, why does popular science constantly push such rigid, one-size-fits-all rules about sleep? We're constantly told that if we don't get exactly 8 continuous hours, we are on a fast track to cognitive decline.
This raises an important question, and you are touching on a major ongoing scientific controversy here.
Oh boy. Let's get into it.
Over the last decade, we've seen an explosion of pop science surrounding sleep. It's turned into a multi-billion-dollar wellness industry. And unfortunately, a lot of that industry relies on creating anxiety to sell solutions.
And the epicenter of this was really the blockbuster book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, right?
Yeah.
It was an absolute phenomenon, but it made massive, terrifying claims. I mean, one of the most famous takeaways from the book was the idea of daylight savings time as this deadly global experiment.
Right, the car crash statistic.
Yeah. The book claimed that when 1.5 billion people lose just 1 hour of sleep in the spring, there is a massive corresponding spike in heart attacks and car crashes the very next day. It basically told the public, miss even a fraction of your 8 hours and your heart might literally give out.
And that narrative spread everywhere.
Hmm.
But the broader scientific community is currently grappling with what is called the replication crisis.
The replication crisis.
Yeah, this is a widespread issue across medicine and the social sciences, where foundational viral studies cannot be reproduced by independent scientists. Researchers are finding major issues with p-hacking.
P-hacking. What is that?
It's essentially massaging data, dropping outliers, or running tests over and over until you find a mathematically significant correlation that might just be a coincidence.
Wow. Now, just to be super clear to everyone listening, we are not taking sides here. We're not saying sleep isn't important or endorsing any one viewpoint. We're just reporting impartially on the content from our sources. But independent researchers have really pushed back on why we sleep, right?
They have. The scrutiny has been intense. Prominent statisticians like Columbia University's Andrew Gelman and independent researchers like Alex Kaguzzi have publicly dismantled several of the core claims in the book.
Okay, let's talk about the daylight savings time heart attack claim. What did they find?
When statisticians looked at that specific claim, they found significant flaws in how the data was presented. The book isolated data from a very specific subset of years to show a dramatic relative spike.
Oh, so they cherry-picked it.
Basically. When statisticians looked at the broader long-term data sets, that massive spike essentially disappeared into the noise of normal daily variations in hospital admissions.
And didn't they also point out something about the World Health Organization?
Yes. The book claimed the World Health Organization declared a global sleep loss epidemic, but the WHO never actually made that declaration.
Wait, really? It was just made up?
It appears so. Furthermore, the book claimed that organizations like the National Sleep Foundation stipulate an 8-hour average for adults. But in reality, those organizations recommend a broad range of 7 to 9 hours, explicitly acknowledging that individual needs vary.
Right. Omitting that nuance about the range is crucial because when you terrify the public about hitting a rigid 8-hour metric and you ignore the statistical reality that some people naturally need 7 hours while others need 9, you just create a manufactured epidemic of insomnia anxiety.
Exactly. The statisticians effectively argued that the exact rules surrounding sleep have been heavily sensationalized to sell a compelling narrative.
But, okay, we have to be careful not to swing the pendulum completely in the opposite direction, right? Discovering flaws in pop science doesn't mean sleep is suddenly useless. Evolutionary biology clearly proves that sleep is deeply vital to our survival.
Oh, absolutely. If we look at modern hunter-gatherer tribes, like the Sand people in the Kalahari Desert who live without artificial light or alarm clocks, they naturally prioritize rest.
They still sleep a lot.
They do. Studies show that they consistently give themselves a sleep opportunity of 7 to 8.5 hours a night. The biological need for sleep, for memory consolidation, for flushing toxins from the brain, for cellular repair is an undeniable reality.
Right. They might break that sleep up into 2 phases, and the exact minutes might vary from person to person, but they are still spending a massive portion of their lives resting. The takeaway here isn't that sleep is unimportant.
Definitely not.
The takeaway is that the rigid, anxiety-inducing metrics we've attached to it are flawed. Your body is incredibly resilient, and the mechanisms of rest are highly adaptable.
They are.
So, knowing all of this, what does this all mean for you? How are we supposed to actually manage our energy on a daily basis?
It comes down to pulling the right biological levers.
Yeah.
First, stop stressing if you wake up at 2 a.m. Your ancestors did it.
Just chill out.
Right. Use that time quietly, don't turn on bright lights, and let your body drift back into its second sleep naturally. The anxiety about being awake is often doing more physiological damage than the wakefulness itself.
And control your inputs. We know that light and food are the hands that set your internal clocks.
Yes, the primary anchors.
So get bright sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning to anchor your SCN, that master brain clock. And just as importantly, use consistent meal times to anchor the hourglasses in your peripheral organs.
That 10-hour window is key.
Right. Try to keep your food intake within a consistent 10-hour window so your digestive system can actually power down, repair itself, and stop fighting your brain at midnight.
And from an organizational standpoint, if you lead a team, figure out who you are working with. Identify the larks and the owls.
Stop forcing owls to present at 8 a.m.
Please. Avoid energetic asynchrony on tasks where you need everyone peaking at once, but intentionally lean into it for long-term projects where you can hand off the baton. Work alongside your biology, rather than fighting it to fit a factory schedule.
I love that. Working with the biology completely flips the script on how we approach our daily routines. Which leaves me with a final, really provocative thought for you to chew on today.
I'm ready.
We have spent decades and billions of dollars trying to fix our sleep by targeting the brain. We buy better mattresses, we install blackout curtains, pop melatonin pills, drink chamomile tea.
All brain-focused.
Right. But if what we learned today about localized timekeeping is true, if our liver, our gut, and our muscle clocks are actually set by food, and those organs are constantly communicating their status back to the brain, could the future of sleep science lie entirely in our diet?
It's a fascinating question.
Could we one day completely cure the misery of jet lag or the exhaustion of shift work fatigue? Not by manipulating our sleep at all, but simply by manipulating the exact timing of our meals.
It entirely redefines what it means to get a good night's rest.
It really does. So the next time you take a cross-country flight, maybe don't worry so much about what time you forced yourself into bed, worry about what time you eat breakfast. It's an experiment you can run on yourself, and maybe, just maybe, it's the key to finally ditching that 2 a.m. guilt.